Hello, everybody, and welcome from the Taj Mahal here in Agra, India, where we are via the magic of Zoom. And I am your instructor, Dr. Singh, and we'll be here together for a little bit the next couple weeks as we journey through the topic of our class. And let me just make sure I'm teaching the right class here. I think I am. I think that would be Islam and popular culture. All right. So today in this module, I'm just going to kind of go over the basics of the course and introduce us to some concepts that we'll be working throughout this semester, and then briefly talk about the concept of Islamophobia, which we'll be looking at in this week's module. All right. All right, so the goal of this course, and we got a couple of them. We're going to try to challenge and understand the stereotypes of Islam and Muslims around the world. And these stereotypes, which we'll be looking at in the first couple modules, we're going to see that it has a very complex history, many of them, going back many hundreds of years, involving things such as the Crusades, slavery, colonialism. And then to kind of go beyond these stereotypes, we're going to look at the tremendous unity and diversity found among Muslims today around the world. Well, where are we going to look? What exactly are we going to look at? Well, we're going to look at Islam and its tremendous diversity as found in the modern world through films, through comic books, stand-up comedy, social activism. So lots of fun and exciting things we've got planned out for this course. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the diversity of what we call the Muslim world. Just by that, let's just say we mean places where that there's a wide variety of Muslim communities, either as major minority communities or as the predominant religious population of a country. So, according to Pew Research, about 1.6 billion, or 23% of the world's population. Now, this is based on the 2010 statistics by Pew. I anticipate the number has grown. So, about 1.6 billion Muslims around the world. And Islam is everywhere. We can find it in the Middle East. We can find it in Africa, Europe, North America, Asia. And we'll be looking at these different parts of the world in this class. Again and again, we're going to emphasize how diverse this religion is and how diverse Muslim communities around the world are. And what is the largest Muslim country? Question mark. We got to put a question mark there. The largest Muslim country. Let's kind of get started here. So maybe pause this video and write down your answer, and let's see if it's right. What is the largest Muslim country? Pick a country, any country. All right, have you locked in your answers? Let's take a look. And by this, I mean, where do most Muslims live? So the largest country by population. And we're going to ask also, of these regions, here's actually the next question. The Middle East, Africa, Europe, North America, Asia, of these different places, where do you think most Muslims live? All right. And the largest Muslim country, and about 12.7% of the world's Muslim population, according to 2010 statistics. So the national population of Muslims, so about 95% of the population. So 95% of 206,611,600 people in Indonesia, 95% are Muslim. And this is population-wise the largest Muslim country. Now, interesting is that most Muslims when asked about what region of the world do we find most Muslims, the answer is actually Asia. So 60% of Muslims around the world live in South or Southeast Asia. So Asia is the major central hub of Muslims around the world, 60% of the population. All right, so just some basics about Islam. So this course presupposes that students really don't have a lot of background when it comes to the study of Islam, and maybe this is your first time studying about Muslims or encountering the Quran or learning about the life of the Prophet Muhammad. So it is going to be taught at an introductory level. So let's kind of go through some more statistics. So again, this is just a global map as of 2010. About Again, the majority of Muslims are in the Asia Pacific region, but as you can see, we have significant populations all throughout the world. Okay, what is Islam? That's the first thing I want to do. And here we're going to look at it from, well, the actual word itself. So Islam means submission or surrendering. It is an action, is an active state of being, or submission or surrendering to who? Well, this idea in Islam is a monotheistic religion, this one God who is all just, all merciful, the creator of all. And Islam is also linguistically related to the word salam, which means peace. And it's sometimes using this other cognate meaning defined as entering into peace with God. So a Muslim is one who submits or one who enters into a state of peace. And Muslims around the world, tremendous diversity, but there's some common sources of authority. Authority meaning sources that Muslims will turn to for guidance, they'll recognize as being the true sources of leadership for humanity in this changing world. So Muslims, above all, is a monotheistic religion, believing in one God. Many of you probably have heard Allah as the name of the common name used to describe um, God in Islam. However, there's many different names of God that are referenced in Islam. One God, many different names, and these names are usually found in the Quran. The Quran is the final revelation of God according to Islam. It is not the first holy book that God revealed, but this is the holy book that Muslims believe is the final revelation, and the the most it is a perfect, complete holy book. Hadith, this is a secondary source of literature in Islam after the Quran. The Hadith are deeds and sayings of someone who's really special in Islam, and maybe some of you have heard of it. This is the Prophet Muhammad. Islam recognizes other prophets, and according to Islam, for example, Jesus was a prophet, Moses was a prophet, but Muhammad is not the first prophet, but the last. And it's through the prophet Muhammad that God reveals the verses of the Quran. We're going to be learning a little bit about Islamic law in this class. So based on the sources of the Quran and the life stories of the prophet, of the sayings and deeds of the prophet Muhammad, the Hadith, there's a belief that Muslims can find a way to live in harmony with this world in accordance with with God's will, God's perfect will for humanity, or the Sharia. And we'll learn a little bit about what makes Islamic law in future classes. But there's a diversity of perspectives. There's different traditions within Islam. We have the Sunni, the Shia, the Sufi. There's different philosophical, theological, and legal traditions. And then there's debates over these sources of authority. What is the nature of God? How do you interpret the Quran? Um, the who counts as a previous prophets? And ultimately, how do we decipher Islamic law? We're not going to get too much into a lot of these debates. This is not, of course, dedicated to the classical sources of authority of Islam. But for those who don't have a background, I wanted to give a little bit of a background. What we're going to focus on in this class, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun, is we're going to challenge certain stereotypes that often have this idea that all Muslims think and act the same way. We're going to see an incredible diversity of Muslims, and we're going to see them through different media, including comic books and television. We're going to look at music. One of my friends recently got me into the world of Muslim hip hop. And we're going to look at social justice movements, so the ways in which Muslims are organizing and advocating for what they interpret to be a just society, and often protesting against regimes that are viewed as unjust. All right, so that's the class in short. But I want to ask you a little question. How do you see Islam and Muslims depicted in media, and why? Well, often there is a categorization of Muslims as warlike, as violent. This is a Newsweek article, Muslim Rage. This is often the image that you'll see of Muslims or something along these lines. But what you don't see is, well, the tremendous diversity and cultural contributions. I chose the Taj Mahal because the Taj Mahal was actually built by a famous Muslim empire that ruled over the Indian subcontinent. That was the Mughal Empire. And here we can see the Sufi dervishes, which we'll look at later in this semester. We can see children, we can see students graduating. We don't really see often in the media Islam as it's lived and practiced in the world, and we don't really see these images of everyday Muslims. Often the media focuses on this type of imagery. Well, we're gonna this week's module and next week's module is going to ask us to, well, why is that the case? Why is this the way that maybe stereotypically, often in media representations, this is how we see Islam, but we don't really see Muslims as they live in the world today. So this is going to get us into the next couple modules. We're going to be discussing stereotypes. So what is a stereotype? Where do stereotypes come from? And this week's module will ask you these questions. Where do stereotypes about Islam and Muslims come from historically? Are stereotypes a problem? And how can we move beyond stereotypes? So we've got some big picture questions. To do that, we're going to be the week's readings, and this is going to be found on our module. They're going to come from two books that I've selected, and these readings are available online. Don't rush out and buy the textbooks, although these are great books if you do want to buy them. One is Islamophobia in America, The Anatomy of Intolerance, and the other is Following Muhammad, Rethinking Islam in the Contemporary World. So these are the books we're working with for this week's modules. And a few words here. Let's go ahead and introduce you to the word Islamophobia. So phobia is something we're scared of, we're uneasy around. And common examples that people have, some are really scared of spiders, some are scared of heights. I am terrified of wasps because I think I was stung by one as a kid. So if you see me around a wasp, if a wasp is flying while I'm teaching, I'm going to freak out on you. But don't worry, that just means there's a wasp, or at least I think there's a wasp. Anyway, we're not talking about wasps. We're not talking about insects or heights. The readings are going to talk about why are certain individuals scared of Islam or uneasy around Muslims. And this will get us into a history of stereotypes. And the stereotypes are going to be tied to various institutions and events, including slavery, the Crusades, colonialism, ongoing foreign policy agendas. These will be all the things we'll be working with the readings this week in our online modules. All right, so this will end kind of the introductory lecture of the course. Um, for many, but not all the modules, you'll be seeing a lecture by me. And good luck with this module. My email address is on the syllabus. Do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions and concerns. All right, stay healthy, stay well, and stay tuned.